I'll start with my greeting. Good morning to our friends in North and South America. Good afternoon to our friends in the UK and Europe. Good early evening to our friends in the Arab states and India. Good evening to our friends in Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore. Good late evening to our friends in Australia. Good to see you. Hope you are all well. Tonight we will have two sections to the Dharma sharing. One part will be some questions. Another part will be sharing some photographs and a bit of a background about a recent trip to Bali in Indonesia, helping to encourage a new abbot in establishing a forest monastery in Bali. But we'll start with the questions, I think, JC.
Okay. Question 1, Dear Ajahn, I have started practicing meditation regularly very recently. Oftentimes, I get a train of thought, and then I feel sleepy during meditation. Months ago, I had undergone an emotional turmoil, and after that, I get too many thoughts during meditation. I'm aware that my mind is wandering and I bring it back onto my breath, but it wanders off again and again. Ajahn, I was in Bodh Gaya on the 29th of November, and I was fortunate to be able to meditate under the holy Bodhi tree. I was able to concentrate better and even the thoughts were fewer. I came back to Bangalore on 30th November, and for 2 days, thoughts were less, and these days again, I am getting too many thoughts. And it is difficult to meditate for even 15 minutes. Ajahn, please share your thoughts on how I can improve. Thank you.
So this person is a beginning meditator. The beginning phases of meditation is explaining that is a lot of thinking, and then there is sleepiness. And after an inspiring occasion or a retreat, there can be a period of a few days of easier practice, but the old habits return. Difficult to meditate for even 15 minutes. So this is where most people's practice starts. That's what it's like. With regards having less thoughts and less sleepiness, it's recommended to do some chanting. So if you're a beginning meditator, whether you're in the mood or not, we understand that reciting these words about Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, or teaching of Buddha, Lord Buddha, it kind of helps the mind to shift gears. It takes the mind off other discursive, restless, unrelated thoughts and puts the thinking mind onto the chanting. And so if you chant, different people have different styles. Some people like to chant slowly, contemplate the meaning of what they're chanting, chant the praises of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and appreciate the three jewels, give rise to some wholesome emotions, mind states first. Other people like to chant a lot, can chant fast and loud. If a person is a skilled chanter, that also takes some work and some time to become familiar with the Pali and comfortable. But in general, if a person chants the Dhammacakka Sutta, the first sermon of the Buddha in Pali, loudly and quickly, probably take about 10 minutes, you will, in most cases, have much less thinking and much less sleepiness, whether you contemplated the meaning or not, whether you wanted to do it or not. The fact that you do it changes gears, puts the mind on that. And then afterwards, you generally find it easier to be with the meditation object. So sometimes we don't do the chanting because we want to be in the mood. We want to play proper reverence. We really do want to contemplate, but there can be a lot of restlessness. Or this person said they'd been through a recent trauma of sorts. So the mind might be thinking of other things, but it's okay. We just do the chanting as a discipline. Sometimes you're into it, sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're contemplating it, sometimes you're not. But the point is, if you do it every day, there will be those occasions where you are contemplating it. There will be those occasions where you are into it. It's similar to meditation. The reason we do it every day is that some days are sleepy, sometimes there's a lot of thoughts, and some days it's peaceful. But if we don't have the daily practice, it will never be peaceful. So we just have to commit. And so, yes, and another thing that we can do, of course, is walking meditation. And it's possible to listen to a Dharma talk while walking. If a person has quite a busy life, you've been in the office or you've been answering text messages, emails, working from home and Zoom meetings, etc. If the mind's been going out all over the place all day, then you might want, if in an abstract way that modern people often find ourselves having to relate with things outside of ourselves that are quite abstract, then getting in your body a bit. If you have a hallway, or if you have a veranda, if you have a park nearby, just go and walk and listen to the Dharma talk while walking. That's another good thing to do that will help you shift modes, get more in your body so that when you come to sit, you're more likely to be able to be with your meditation object. So yeah, I think we do need to understand that we need to prime the mind, incline the mind, prepare the mind to some degree to meditate. The other approach, of course, is to just sit a long time until the mind comes down, but that's a bit more, that's kind of harder. It takes a lot of faith and a lot of patience, but that also is effective. That you'll sit, there's restlessness, you'll sit, there's sleepiness, you'll keep sitting, you don't want to do it anymore, sit and there's pain, but you keep sitting. And then if you can get to the 1 hour point, most often you will find at the end of the hour that there is some peacefulness. There have been some periods of peacefulness during that sit. And then an important thing to notice after you sit is when you get up. Because when we're sitting, it's like we're taking a magnifying glass to our mind and we're noticing every little thought, every little hindrance. And the more energy and more peacefulness the mind has, the more close we look at it. And we feel like it's never peaceful. But what I encourage people to do is when you stand up after your meditation, feel your body and mind and notice, is it more peaceful than an hour ago? Is there more presence of mind? Is there more clarity? When you walk, is there a feeling of lightness? Oftentimes there is. When we kind of skip over, we don't notice that. And what we do remember is how hard it was for the first 10 or 15 minutes. And we compare our experience to what we want it to be. I want the first jhana, I want the second jhana, I went 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I went 8 jhanas and, everything else. And then that's what we want. So we don't notice the benefits that we get in that actual session on that day. Normally there is, just from making the effort to sit and getting through the minutes, there is more presence of mind, there is more brightness, there is more clarity. The heart does feel less oppressed. And in that regard, it works. It works on most occasions, the overwhelming majority of occasions, unless you completely fell asleep. And even that can be helpful. If you're really tired, at least you got a nap, So yes, daily practice, but it is good. In general, I think it's good to learn how to prime the mind, incline the mind, slowly gather the mind, put it on wholesome objects first, change gears, then do the formal meditation. You're more likely to be with your meditation object more easily, and more likely to experience peace, and then more likely to enjoy the process. The fact that this person got good meditation while they're in Bodh Gaya, I think, is a good sign, because Bodh Gaya is noisy and busy. So it does mean that the ability is there. To the issue, it's probably the matter of faith. The mind is inspired with faith or touched with gratitude. So there's wholesome mind states. Then it's easier to be with the meditation object. But not everybody who goes to Bodh Gaya finds that they have peaceful meditations. So I take that as a good sign, encouraging. I wish this person all the best in their practice. And oftentimes, beginning or not, it's the same stuff we work with. How to brighten the mind, how to settle the hindrances, how to appreciate and enjoy the practice, how to be consistent, and how to not give up. It's the same stuff for the intermediate practitioners as well. For the advanced practitioners, I'm sure it gets easier, entering jhana on one in-breath, and for as many hours as you like. That does happen. I was recently at Ajahn Biek's birthday chanting in Bangkok. Ajahn Biek is renowned, probably the monk who has the most samadhi among Ajahn Chah's disciples. He did relay at the end of the 180. So we did like a 3-hour chanting session, and he did relay in his Dhamma talk at the end of the session that he can recollect past lives, and he remembers having been a rishi living in a cave for 20 lives. So if you want to know why a person has amazing samadhi seemingly quickly, you have to be mindful of the 20 lives that came before it. And he also mentioned about this life. I think he was like having a little bit of a poke at me. He says, there's a lot of monks here. I'm happy to see the monks here. Some of these monks meditate a lot. They count their meditation and in hours. And then he said, if I were to count my meditation hours, it's 300,000 this lifetime. So I did a little bit of calculating. That means Lumpur Biek meditated 16 hours a day for 50 years. So, and he experiences the bliss of liberation, and this is his last life. So that's where it leads to. But we do have to sow the causes. And he was explaining how, as a when he was unwell for many years, he had diarrhea, need to go to the toilet like 4 times in the morning or afternoon. But yeah, go to the toilet, come back and meditate. Go to the toilet, come back and meditate. Go to the toilet, come back and meditate. So needing to go to the toilet with diarrhea was his break from the formal posture, and he'd come back and sit again. So that's the kind of capacity one can have if one doesn't let up and one goes for lifetimes. You will become very impressive. But nobody starts impressive. But everybody has impressive moments, even in the beginning. So I encourage you, may your impressive moments increase exponentially.
Sadhu.
By impressive, I mean mindful and peaceful.
Sadhu for the encouragement words. Question 2, dear Ajahn. Now that we are in the new year, I would like to do a good job of managing my faults. I'm primarily a greed type. I struggle with lust, gluttony, and excessive use of technology for distraction, to name 3. Any tips for cutting this off? Can a non-noble person overcome these faults? Thank you.
Can a non-noble person overcome the faults of lust, gluttony, and excessive distraction with technology? So, yes, nobody starts as noble. We all start with some greed, hatred, and delusion in our minds, quite a bit actually. That's the starting point. And so we do need to find ways to keep the mind within parameters so it doesn't become too ignoble. So that's why we commit to the 5 precepts to the degree that you can. If you can't yet, you keep trying. It's a training. But that's generally understood as the appropriate standard to build a meditation practice upon, keeping the 5 precepts. I think things like, I do a lot in my own practice and life, making determinations and then keeping them is what we have to do. We have to make a framework, set parameters. And I think if we try to be too impressive too quickly, we're bound to fail. Most people, if you take a small step and another small step and another small step, and if you're determined not to fall back, if you do slip back, start again to where you were, that's probably the most sustainable approach. So things like committing to a chanting session, listening to a Dhamma talk, a meditation session, a couple a day if possible, then you're already limiting the amount of time that you can be lazy, gluttonous, and lustful, because you're giving the mind other activities, then what normally happens is the clarity and energy that comes from listening to Dharma talks, chanting, meditating, gives you the conviction to be able to put up a bit of a fight with the unskillful habits. Then it becomes possible to like, you can give yourself a, suppose you're spending, this person says distraction with the devices is a big issue. Suppose you're spending 5 hours a day on it, then you cut back to 3. So just reduce it 40% at first. To say I'm not going to do it at all anymore might be too hard in the beginning. So it's like, okay, but you give yourself an hour in the morning. Like I would say, meditate for an hour in the morning, hour in the afternoon, hour in the evening. But most people, it's 2 hours on the device in the morning, 2 hours on the device in the afternoon, 2 hours on the device in the evening. So need to lower the amount of time we waste on these things. So, but you can't do it all at once. So it's like, yes, allow yourself to still indulge in some distraction and entertainment. I'm talking about for beginners. So those of you who are already practicing well, I'm not encouraging you to spend an hour on your device in the morning, afternoon, and evening. I'm encouraging somebody who has a problem with these things to use it less. But it's a kind of a reward system, carrot and stick. You can still entertain and distract yourself a bit, but you do have to do your meditation and your chanting. And as you do these things, hopefully over a period of time, the sensitivity of the mind becomes aware that the mind is dull or agitated or wasted energy in using these things, and the mind becomes less inclined to waste that time, and you appreciate your meditation more and you want to do more naturally. But it's you have to nourish the practice long enough until you feel that. I would warn against violent computer games and pornography, because certain activities increase the ignorance and the delusion and the root kilesas of greed and hatred more than others. And that does increase the darkness in the mind. And then when the darkness is increased in the mind, that feeds the ignorance more. And it's a kind of a loop. Ignorance feeding greed and hatred feeding ignorance. And that is samsara. You're not going to get out or progress much if you keep feeding these root kilesas, greed, hatred, and delusion. So, try to keep it, what's the word? Moderate entertainment, lightweight distraction, nothing too passionate. Maybe it's probably okay to watch kitten videos on YouTube, and I do that sometimes.
Sadhu.
Dear Ajahn, my question is about the path to go deeper in my meditation practice. I have been practicing Vipassana and Anapanasati in the Goenka tradition since 2015. Since September of 2025, my practice became gradually more established with daily 2-hour practices. I am very grateful for this teaching and have found the practice and the retreat a real gem. However, as I prepare to go deeper in the practice, specifically preparing to join the 20-day and other longer courses in the Goenka tradition, I am realizing that maybe this path is not available for me because I, as yet, could not see myself dedicating 100% to Vipassana as taught in the tradition only. Whilst the specific Vipassana meditation is centered in my daily practice, I also find other wholesome meditations according to Lord Buddha, such as Devanusati and guided metta meditation, helpful. And I also enjoy chanting the mantra of Avalokiteshvara as well as the occasional Vedic-based chakra and Om chants. All these would technically disqualify me to go forth to the long course in the Goenka tradition. In addition, I also find energy work in the Vedic tradition very helpful. It's a minor part of the practice, but wholesome visualization and energy work to heal the body, for example, seems to me helpful and skillful to the practice. What should I do? Except that I cannot go deeper in the Goenka tradition and only stick to 10-day retreats. it seems like I don't have a choice because unless I completely stop the other practices, my application won't be accepted. My intention is to deepen the practice of the teaching of the Buddha, not necessarily the Vipassana method. Can you recommend other teachings or schools that I can join to go deeper than the 10-day Vipassana retreat, other than go forth and renunciate? Good question. Many people begin their practice with the Goenka Vipassana retreats. I am one of those. And so I'm grateful, very grateful to SN Goenka, Goenkaji. I also actually know some people who worked quite closely with Goenka, some Indian gentlemen who had a decades-long relationship with him, and we've talked about many things. And I can see I think we have to give due credit to the effectiveness of the way Goenkaji set things up so that his retreat centers could spread all around the world, and so that getting groups of human beings to focus on anything is not easy. And so whereas this person is saying they find other practices helpful, of course, so do I. The problem is for someone who was obviously trying to spread a practice that would help people to have more mindfulness and that would benefit them where they were, and for that to be applicable all around the world, you can't make this exception for this person, that exception for that person, this exception for this person. So it is the case that we've all done some practice in the past, and it is the case that the way our being functions in this life is a result of those practices, and every single person lives in a slightly different universe depending on their most recent million lives, as far as I can tell. And so different minds are different, and different practices get different results for different minds. So certain people find certain things helpful. But you could also see how it could easily go off the rails, right? Like, I like the Vipassana meditation method. I'm doing it 2 hours a day. I find benefits, but I also want to do this Vedic practice. And I also find this helpful. And so I get what this person's saying, and I totally empathize. But it's also easy to see how that could become, then I do want to do this Vedic practice, and then I want to do this yogic practice, and then I want to do this tantric practice, and then I want to, because the human mind's capacity to proliferate and for one thing to lead to another and another thing to lead to another. So my general sense is, I guess I'm going to have to say some bold things and I might offend some people, but that's not my intention. My intention is to speak truth as far as I understand it, as an encouragement to fellow truth seekers. I do not believe that the Vipassana method is Buddhism, all of Buddhism. I do not believe that the Buddha was practicing that method under the Bodhi tree exclusively. I do not believe that other Buddhist practices would be harmful to the practice of being mindful of feelings in the body necessarily. I do understand why the managers and Goenkaji tried to keep it focused, tried to keep people focused. I totally get it. And we have to give him credit for the fact that it was very largely successful. A lot of people benefited and continue to benefit. My own sense is that once people commit to the practice mindfulness, because essentially it's not a method, it's mindfulness. And Vipassana means insight. It kind of got rebranded by the Vipassana insight meditation community. So, but they don't have a copyright to it. It's mindfulness is a non-personal, unincorporated quality that anyone can cultivate using a variety of methods. Even in the Fourth Foundations of Mindfulness Sutta, which the Goenkaji explains the method is extracted from or based upon, there is talk of, different ways to practice mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of mind states, mindfulness of the chitta, all of these. There's a lot of field of contemplation in the Four Foundations of Mindfulness. So, long story short, you probably have to do just the 10-day retreats. And I think it's good to recognize this person, depending who's asking the question, this person is making sense to me, that this person finds that Devanasati supports their Vipassana practice. Sadhu, why not? That other practices support health of the body. If this person has experience of yogic traditions, of course, why not? And I don't think one should reject things which one can see with one's own mindfulness and wisdom are helpful for the sake of committing to a method. So this is mindfulness, clear comprehension, and wisdom functioning in the mind. And we have to apply our mindfulness, clear comprehension, and wisdom to practice Buddhism to the best of our abilities according to our needs and according to what's appropriate. So I think it's fine to chant some devotional chanting. If it's helpful, I think it's fine to contemplate the existence of devas. And this is also, it's not, if we look at the 84,000 verses in the Pali Canon, I'm not encouraging you to look at all 84,000. I'm just saying in that 84,000, there is a lot of material. And among that material, Lord Buddha does say that contemplating devas is a wholesome meditation object for those who have faith. So it's not against Buddhism. It's some people, if we're looking at our general character type, greed types need to do more body contemplation. Aversion types need to do more metta. It's not a one size fits all. We need to know our deluded types probably need to visit, well, they're supposed to visit their teacher frequently because their teacher checks on them. And they probably need to hear Dhamma frequently, but can also get lost in listening to too many Dhamma teachers. But it's good to commit to one or two or three. It's not. So yes, I support this person in embracing practices that they find helpful. And if that means that the Vipassana community won't allow you to do 20 or 30 days retreats, then that's unfortunate, but that's the way it is.
Thank you, Sadhu, for your sharing and encouragement.
And by the way, the people who I know who lived and worked with, not lived with, but worked closely with Goenka for decades, do other practices now.